Good morning. Here is your global news report for April 19, 2026. The current international situation is dominated by tensions in the Middle East, driven by complex diplomacy and military actions between Iran and the United States concerning the Strait of Hormuz. Former President Donald Trump's policies and his public dispute with the Pope continue to significantly influence international relations. Meanwhile, Russia's deepening cooperation with North Korea in occupied territory signals a shift in the global balance of power. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has effectively reimposed a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, denouncing the U.S. naval blockade as piracy and reporting incidents of gunfire directed at vessels. In Lebanon, the ceasefire with Israel has been violated, with tensions in the Middle East escalating sharply following an attack on UN forces that resulted in the death of French soldiers. The capability of Iran's low-cost drones and missiles to destroy expensive U.S. assets is drawing attention. President Donald Trump has warned that the U.S. maritime blockade of the Strait of Hormuz will continue until a deal with Iran is finalized, stating, "Blackmail will not be tolerated." To mitigate the surge in crude oil prices caused by the conflict with Iran, he has extended the authorization for purchasing Russian crude oil. Furthermore, his public dispute with Pope Leo XIV regarding the Middle East situation is also attracting international attention. In Russia-occupied Kherson Oblast, Ukraine, the Russian-appointed head of the region met with the North Korean ambassador in Moscow to discuss strengthening cooperation in areas such as agriculture and humanitarian aid. This indicates a deepening partnership between the two countries amidst the ongoing war in Ukraine, holding significant geopolitical importance on a global scale. Next, here are the key stories from the U.S. The media industry saw significant movements, with a major acquisition being blocked and Live Nation being found guilty of antitrust violations, indicating a strong focus on competition policy. Additionally, reports covered the murder case involving a former lieutenant governor and the nomination of a new CDC director. A federal judge blocked the acquisition of Tegna, a rival TV station owner, by Nexstar. Furthermore, Live Nation was found by a federal jury to have engaged in anti-competitive practices. Authorities announced that former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax allegedly murdered his wife, Serena Fairfax, at their home. The Trump administration is reportedly set to nominate former Deputy Surgeon General Dr. Erica Schwartz as the new director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, amidst ongoing turmoil within the agency. Next, here are the key stories from Europe. While Hungary seeks to mend ties with the EU by cooperating with Poland, Norway has launched an investigation related to Epstein, and in the UK, anti-Semitic posts by election candidates have become a point of contention. Hungary's election winner, Peter Magyar, is seeking to build a special relationship with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, drawing on experiences in repairing EU relations after years of illiberal governance. The Norwegian parliament has established an independent committee to investigate ties with the late Jeffrey Epstein, reaching back over 30 years, raising concerns about trust in democracy. 3 Green Party candidates running in local elections in Newcastle, UK, have been accused by the Labour Party of making appalling anti-Semitic social media posts. Next, here are the key stories from the Middle East. Tensions between Iran and the U.S. over the Strait of Hormuz continue, with increased activity in regional conflicts including the Syrian Golan Heights issue and violations of the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps announced that the management of the Strait of Hormuz had returned to its previous state due to the U.S. naval blockade. Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump stated that the naval blockade would continue until a deal is finalized, and the Iranian side denied Trump's claims of concessions. The Israeli military announced on April 17 that it had neutralized suspects in the West Bank. In southern Lebanon, Israeli shelling has violated the ceasefire, with houses being destroyed while tens of thousands of displaced people are returning. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad asserted that the Golan Heights are occupied Syrian territory and that Israel's claims of sovereignty are invalid. The Lebanese president stated that a ceasefire with Israel should lead to a permanent agreement. Next, here are the key stories from Russia. Facing financial difficulties, Russia is scaling back support for new businesses, while the U.S. has extended sanctions waivers on Russian oil. Furthermore, officials in occupied Kherson have discussed cooperation with North Korea, indicating a deepening of diplomatic relations. The Russian government has announced a policy to reduce support for new businesses, including subsidies and preferential loans, due to increasing financial pressure and slowing economic growth. Economic Development Minister Maxim Reshetnikov stated that while existing obligations will be met, new expenditures will be significantly restrained. The United States has extended a one-month sanctions waiver on the purchase of Russian oil and petroleum products on vessels by an additional month, until May 16. This comes despite previous statements by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicating the waiver would not be renewed. Vladimir Saldo, the Russian-appointed official in Ukraine's southern Kherson region, met with North Korean Ambassador Sin Hongkol in Moscow to discuss potential cooperation in agriculture, humanitarian aid, culture, sports, and education. This signifies the deepening relationship between Moscow and Pyongyang as Russia seeks economic and military support during the ongoing war in Ukraine. Next, here are the key stories from China. China is intensifying its diplomatic activities, dispatching a special envoy to the Congo. Domestically, the Canton Fair showcased robot technology to attract multinational corporate investment. Simultaneously, China protested the passage of Japanese warships through the Taiwan Strait and is pursuing energy security in North Africa, demonstrating activity on multiple fronts. The Chinese Ministry of National Defense strongly condemned the passage of the Japanese destroyer Inazuma through the Taiwan Strait on April 17 as a deliberate provocation and lodged a strong protest with Japan. The 139th China Import and Export Fair, Canton Fair, opened on April 15, with 46 service robot companies exhibiting their technological innovations. Many multinational corporations are evaluating China's stable policy environment and vast market, continuing to expand their businesses. In response to the energy crisis caused by the situation in Iran, China is accelerating projects in North Africa, such as Algerian oil fields and Moroccan battery factories, signaling a policy to make the Mediterranean region a strategic hub for green energy supply chains. Next, here are the key stories from Japan. The situation has become tense again with Iran announcing a de facto reblockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Domestically, the government is considering the creation of a new system for investment trusts in unlisted stocks, and the Bank of Japan's interest rate hike is expected to boost the net profits of the three megabanks by nearly 300 billion yen. Social trends, such as a decline in managerial aspirations and rising housing costs, were also reported. Iran has announced a reblockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a reversal from its previous opening declaration, making the situation once again uncertain. The Revolutionary Guard Corps has imposed 4 navigation rules, including requiring designated routes and permits, on civilian vessels, leading to over 20 tankers being turned back. The government is considering establishing a new public offering system for investment trusts that invest in private assets like unlisted stocks, aiming to attract funds from individual investors and support the growth of startup companies. If the Bank of Japan proceeds with a 0.25% interest rate hike, the net profits of the three megabank groups are projected to increase by nearly 300 billion yen, raising interest in the future of interest rates within the financial sector. Next, here are the key stories from Asia-Oceania. In India, a bill allocating seats for women has sparked political debate, and in Myanmar, the former president was released, indicating political movements. China is also considering regulations for AI-generated humans. In India, following the rejection of a government bill to allocate 33% of parliamentary seats to women, the opposition DMK party has submitted an alternative bill to apply this from the next election based on the existing 543 seats, intensifying political conflict between the ruling and opposition parties. In Myanmar, former President Win Myint, ousted in a military coup, was released on amnesty on April 17. This has fueled speculation about the treatment of the detained Aung San Suu Kyi, but hopes for a restoration of democracy remain low. In China, due to the increasing difficulty in distinguishing between AI-generated humans, like virtual singers, and real people, the government is considering regulations for AI-generated humans, drawing attention to the societal impact of rapid technological advancements. Next, here are the key stories from South America. Amidst the escalating international tensions due to Iran's opening and subsequent closing of the Strait of Hormuz, the Argentine government has appealed to the Supreme Court regarding a university funding law. Furthermore, Brazil and Spain have formed a progressive alliance, calling for a united front against global right-wing forces. Iran announced on Friday the complete opening of the Strait of Hormuz until the ceasefire period with the United States, but resumed strict control in less than 24 hours. In retaliation for the U.S. maintaining its blockade of Iranian ports, at least 2 vessels were reportedly fired upon, with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps attacking a tanker. The Argentine government has appealed to the Supreme Court to avoid applying the university funding law, Law 27.795, which mandates the renewal of university faculty salaries and scholarship programs. The government argues that complying with this law would consume 90.3% of the available basic expenditure budget, leading to a significant paralysis of government functions. Brazilian President Lula and Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez met in Barcelona and strengthened a political alliance between left-wing forces in Europe and Latin America to counter right-wing movements on both continents. The 2 leaders showed full alignment and signed a series of cooperation agreements. That concludes today's Global News Report. Have a great day. Thank you for watching.